The reproductive system internal changes. Some parts of the reproductive system are visible on the outside of the body, but most of the parts are inside the body. Now that you have learned about the external changes that take place during puberty, you are ready to study the internal changes. Even though these changes are not visible, they affect the way you feel and the way your body works. In this reading, you will learn the names and locations of more of the structures that make up the reproductive system, and you will begin to learn about their functions. Boy to man. As you learn, one of the early signs of puberty is the growth of the scrotum. It grows because the testes inside are growing. The testes are paired, egg-shaped structures. They are made up of a mass of microscopic coiled tubes. They do not contain any fat or muscle tissue. Testes have two main functions: to produce sperm and to release hormones. Sperm are made in the coiled tubes. The cells around the tubes produce the male hormone, testosterone. During puberty, a testis may double in size, growing from about 2 centimeters in length to a length of 4 or 5 centimeters. Look at figure 16-9 and find the tube that lies along the back side of each of the testes. This tube is the epididymis. Once sperm are produced in the testes, they travel into the epididymis where they finish maturing. Leading away from the epididymis is a larger tube, the vas deferens. Sometimes it is referred to simply as the vas. It extends out of the scrotum and into the abdomen. It then loops around the bladder to join the urethra. Sperm moves through the vas deferens into the urethra and out of the body, following the path of the vas in figure 16-9 and 16-10, which figure is easier for you to understand. The urethra is yet another tube. The male reproductive system is made up of many tubes. Since the urethra drains urine from the bladder, you may have discovered it when you studied the urinary system. As part of the reproductive system, it transports sperm from the vas deferens out of the body through the penis. Even though both urine and semen pass through the urethra, they are never there at the same time. A muscle closes off the connection between the urethra and the bladder when the sperm are present. Several glands produce fluid that is released into the vas. The largest of the glands, located right beneath the bladder, is the prostate. In children, it is relatively small, but during puberty, it starts to grow and eventually reaches 2 to 3 centimeters in diameter. Boys and young men are usually do not need to give much thought to their prostates, but after the age of 40, men should have an annual prostate check because it is a common site of cancer. The seminal vesicles are a pair of glands that also produce fluid. Find them on the figure. Girl to woman. A girl's reproductive system has fewer tubes than a boy's does. The main structure of the female reproductive system are labeled in figure 16-11 and 16-12. Locate the ovaries in both figures. In an adult female, they are 2 to 3 centimeters long. In addition to releasing egg cells, they produce sex hormones such as estrogen. These hormones regulate many of the characteristics that we think of as being female. Biologically, the ovaries and testes are similar, since they have a similar function. When an egg is released from an ovary, it enters a fallopian tube. These 10 centimeters, 4-inch long structures extend from each ovary to the uterus. They are fairly narrow, about a diameter of a pencil. At the end of the fallopian tube, flares open to guide eggs into the opening of the tube itself. The walls of the fallopian tubes are made up of smooth muscle cells. When these muscles contract, the tiny cilia that line the tubes wave back and forth, moving the egg along the length of the tube towards the uterus. To many people, the uterus is the most familiar part of the reproductive system because it is where the baby develops and grows. During puberty, the uterus more than doubles in size. It grows until it is about the size and shape of a pear. Like the fallopian tubes, the walls of the uterus are made up of smooth muscle cells. When a female is not pregnant, there is not much space in the uterus, but during pregnancy, the muscle fibers relax, allowing the walls of the uterus to stretch so the uterus can hold a baby, and sometimes even 2 or 3 babies. During puberty, the lining of the uterus develops blood vessels that go through monthly changes. When those changes begin, a girl experiences her first menstrual period. This process is too complex to explain in this reading, so, as you expect, you will learn more about menstruation at a later reading. The lower part of the uterus is called the cervix. It is a firm muscle ring that surrounds the opening to the uterus. The muscle in the cervix have to be strong because they keep the uterus closed during a pregnancy. Because of this muscle, a baby cannot fall out of the uterus. The vagina is a flexible tube that extends from the uterus to the outside of the body. Like the uterus and fallopian tubes, its walls also contain smooth muscle cells. These cells can contract, relax, and stretch. Usually, the cells are relaxed so the vagina is similar to a collapsed tube. When necessary, it stretches enough for the delivery of a baby. For this reason, it is sometimes called the birth canal. The urinary bladder and the urethra are labeled in Figure 16-12. While neither one is part of the reproductive system, they are included to help you see how everything fits together. By now you should realize that the female has 3 openings in the lower part of her body: the urethra, the vagina, and the anus, whereas a male has 2, the urethra and the anus. In order to check a female's reproductive system for medical problems such as lumps, the physician may be able to feel the structure. This is accomplished by doing a pelvic exam. During an exam, the physician gently inserts 2 gloved fingers into the vagina and carefully feels for any abnormalities. It may feel a little uncomfortable, but it is not painful. Parts of a system. This reading has described some of the structures that make up the reproductive system. As with all other systems, the parts all work together. You will learn about the functioning of the reproductive system in the next few lessons. Analysis questions. Number 1. Compare the testes and ovaries. A. List at least 2 ways they are like. B. List at least 3 ways they differ. Number 2. Think about the changes that take place in the male reproductive system during puberty. Which structure do you think changes the most? Why did you choose this structure? Number 3. Think about the changes that take place in the female reproductive system during puberty. Which structures do you think change the most? Why did you choose this structure?